Yeah, man, 5170 to the world. Rap solo till I die, man. Black Steaze, your boy J. Urus on the beat. It's also a religion, that's what we say. Yeah. Been pushing in a spy all day, my boy. I say we corner store inspired. On God, my boy. DT wavugu malambani. Inyawo zinotaka. Goddamn, it's been a long road.
Ujani Mawetu, welcome back to another one. It's Spreading the Mic with Steaze on the ACWS network. Today we'll be diving deep into another topic that is touched to the South African public. But before we jump into the content, like, comment, subscribe, share this on all your socials, follow us on your socials, and say this to that favorite friend of yours that you know needs to know a little bit more about our history. There's a saying amongst our people, a person is a person through others. But what happens when the system decides who qualifies as a person and who remains invisible? You can work your bones dry, but if the banks decide that you are not worthy, your humanity gets denied credit. Welcome back to another critical episode on the Indigenous network with Steaze. Today's Burning the Mic episode is about banks and betrayal, a piercing investigation into how the banking sector in South Africa became a battlefield for racialized capital, betrayal, and systematic collapse. Now let's trace the money, and it always starts at the roots. South Africa's modern banking ecosystem did not emerge organically. It was engineered. It was built on pillars of ethnic and political allegiance. Barclays Bank, established in 1934, was not a financial institution only. According to archival codes from the 1940s, an Afrikaner Economic Conference, this is what it read: "Our bank shall not serve financial purposes only, but it will also serve the cause of national liberation." Now this referred to the Afrikaners' independence from the English capital dominance. Their mission was to fund a nationalist vision. That same focus eventually emerged in what we know today as ABSA, the Amalgamated Banks of South Africa. Meanwhile, Standard Bank and Nedbank, the old British boys, provided elite infrastructure for the foreign capital and white urban privilege. And where were the black South African in all of this? They were financial ghosts in their own country. Now, after both world wars, the apartheid government definitely played favorites. When the white European descendants returned from war, they returned to lifeboats, free farms, subsidized loans, and funding via state-backed banks like Land Bank and Volksbank. A 1946 Ministry of Agriculture communique reads, "The department shall assist veterans of European origin with financing through strategic banking partners to ensure agricultural productivity." This should show you that preference was definitely given to people of the whiter descent. No mention of the black people, no mention of the porters, no mention of the men that were made to be foot soldiers. Now, the betrayal wasn't always homegrown as well. Barclays Bank controlled over 60% of South Africa's financial operations in the 1970s. Their money built the apartheid police barracks, their money built white-only housing, and their money built the township control grids. But in 1985, as a BBC broadcaster captured that Barclays, under long fire for its links to apartheid, faces renewed pressure from British students, threatening account closures unless the bank divests. Those students continued to make noise, and it finally worked. Barclays exited South Africa in 1986, losing millions. Barclays didn't leave forever, they'd be back. In 2005, they acquired a portion of ABSA.
Well, you remember that the SARB governor at the time was Tito Mboweni. He appointed the judge, he set the terms of reference, and then he found that no shareholder had actually benefited from that so-called ABSA lifeboat. And that's the problem. Nearly 2 decades later, the issue was brought to the Public Protector's attention on a broader issue. The Public Protector is now saying that the SARB breached the Constitution and the Public Finance Management Act. So there's a governance concern and issue here. Then there's the prevailing mood in some quarters in politics and in black economic empowerment circles in South Africa at the moment. It's anti-white monopoly capital, and there's also a rallying against white big business, specifically those businesses that have benefited at the expense of the country, and more specifically around black people.
We fast forward to the age of the digital deceit. 28 local and global banks got caught rigging the value of the South African rand.
The Competition Commission says it has evidence that the bank traders participated in a selective chat room that conspired to manipulate the rand, and that this was done purely for commercial gains. Currency trading transactions involving the rand and the US dollar are said to amount to $5 billion a day.
We are here dealing with an alleged conspiracy And I think that has to be taken into account. We're not dealing with each of these respondents having acted in their individual rights, so to speak. But we're dealing with collusion in the classical sense.
The first thing we know is that there is a chat room, and that chat room has selected participants. For the 1.2.2, in that chat room, there is an administrator. And what that administrator does is to invite other participants. And once you are invited, you obviously have the election either to participate or to refuse the invitation.
The banks had initially said that there's no evidence that they participated in the alleged currency rigging and that the Commission has no jurisdiction to prosecute them.
After this had been found out by the South Africa's Competition Commission in 2017, they ruled that evidence pointed towards a network of well-coordinated corrupt activity as banks colluded on prices in the trading of the rand. They used Bloomberg terminals and WhatsApp groups to coordinate currency manipulation. The big names included Barclays Capital, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, Standard Chartered, HSBC, Nedbank, and Standard Bank were involved indirectly. Yet only Citibank paid a hefty fine of 69.5 million rands. Nobody went to jail though. That's the cost of betrayal, always discounted for the powerful.
South Africa's Competition Tribunal has dismissed applications and objections brought by various local and foreign banks to escape prosecution in an ongoing case of investigation rallied around alleged currency manipulation. In February 2017, the Competition Commission referred a number of banks, including Investec, Standard Bank, and ABSA, to the Competition Tribunal for price fixing involving the rand. The Commission ultimately brought 28 banks under investigation, including Nedbank and First Rand, in what it is calling the Forex cartel case. The Commission is accusing the banks of colluding on Forex deals and thus manipulating the foreign exchange market by fixing the price of the rand for several seconds and even minutes several times between 2007 and until at least September 2013. It also alleged that the banks had divided markets by allocating customers in the USD-ZAR currency pair. Now, the Competition Tribunal dismissed all of the different applications and objections submitted by 15 banks, insisting that the financial institutions will be probed to the letter.
Then came VBS, one of the few black-owned banks. It was created for the vendor people, but in 2018 it collapsed under 2 billion worth of looting. That's South African rands. Politicians, municipal councils and executives, all of them feeding from a vicious cycle. Advocate Terry Mutau released a forensic report from the South African Reserve Bank, and it pulled no punches. He'd quote, "The great bank heist was enabled by weak regulatory oversight and systematic impunity." VBS was the first bank in post-1994 South Africa to be liquidated under the Mutual Banks Act, with zero recapitalization from the Reserve Bank. Finally, let's talk about being erased or being limited, sidelined. Islamic banks were always sidelined by policy. Indian and Hebrew ran community credit unions were taxed and they were absorbed into white-dominated or white-controlled financial ecosystems. As one 1985 Islamic Financial Review puts it, the exclusion of Sharia-compliant banks from favorable reserve conditions and state-recognized protections signals deliberate policy jams. It's a good thing to know that South Africa back in the day had an ample of 15 black-owned or Indian-owned cooperative banks in the 1950s, but today only a handful survive, with most who were phased out by post-apartheid regulatory rules, which is really confusing. From ABSA's nationalist roots to Barclays' exit and recent return, from black veterans being forgotten from both wars, to the VBS savers being betrayed and the South African Reserve Bank not recapitalizing, our banking history is not just economic, it's existential. We've seen lifeboats launched for white capital, but black communities left to drown. But in a world where currency buys dignity, Ubuntu must become rebellion. I have been Black Steaze, and this has been Burning the Mic with Steaze only on the ACWS network. Stay vigilant, stay thinking, and stay